All organisms are split first into domains: eukaryota, organisms that have cell nuclei, normal bacteria, and archaea, primitive bacteria. We then split eukaryota into the following taxonomy levels: kingdom, phylum, class, order, family, genus, and species. King Philip came over for good soup is a good mnemonic to remember this by. To identify an organism quickly, we just give the genus, also known as its generic name, followed by the species, its specific name. This combination is called its binomial name, but you might also see it called its Latin name, as that's the language that was first used for it, but Greek is also another main language used for the names. Binomial name is given in italics or it's underlined, and the first letter of the genus is capitalized. Generally, if organisms can produce fertile offspring, they are considered to be of the same species. Biodiversity is a measure of the number of different species of organisms in an environment, and therefore how many different alleles are found there. The index of diversity is calculated by multiplying the total number of organisms by the same again minus 1, divided by the same of the numbers in each species. Greater biodiversity is generally good, as it leads to a more stable ecosystem that can maintain life when environmental conditions change. We can now use genetic analysis to determine what alleles are present in an environment to determine what intra- and interspecific variation exists. We measure the frequency of these by random sampling with a quadrat and a transect if we want to observe how frequency changes over a distance. The sun is the source of all energy that enters ecosystems on the Earth, where its light is used for photosynthesis in producers, also known as autotrophs, to make food to be used by heterotrophs. However, only around 10% of energy made or consumed by one organism is transferred to the next. The rest is lost due to excretion, uneaten parts, decay, and metabolic processes that use energy like respiration. The efficiency of transfer is calculated like any other percentage. Biomass is an organism's mass. Dry mass is generally used to calculate energy stored per unit mass, as wet mass can vary too much. This can be done using a bomb calorimeter, where it's burned in pure oxygen with the calorimeter submerged under water. This is pretty accurate, as all of the energy released is used to heat the water. None should be lost in theory. Gross primary productivity is the rate of energy used to make new plant biomass. Net primary productivity is the energy incorporated into plant biomass after losses have been taken into account. Nitrogen is used for ammonia, which is needed for amino acids. It follows a cycle. Nitrogen in the air undergoes fixation by certain bacteria in root nodules of some plants, specifically legumes. This produces ammonia. Ammonification also produces ammonia by the breaking down of organic matter, thanks to microbes called saprobionts. Proteins are hydrolyzed by protease enzymes on their surface, then the amino groups are removed by deaminase enzymes. Ammonia is converted into nitrate ions by nitrification in nitrifying bacteria. These are then absorbed into a plant's roots. Denitrification is, no prizes for guessing, the opposite of nitrification. Some bacteria convert nitrate ions back into nitrogen gas. This is generally not beneficial. Plants also absorb phosphate ions through their roots. They come from sedimentary rocks, decaying bones, shells, and bird poop. Mycorrhizae is the term given to the symbiotic relationship between fungi and plant roots that results in a sponge-like material with a large surface area for water and minerals to be stored for a non-rainy day. We use natural fertilizers like slurry from cow feces and artificial ones to replace nitrates and phosphates removed when we harvest crops. However, overuse can lead to leaching. The fertilizer is washed into bodies of standing water like ponds and lakes, and eutrophication can occur. The ammonia causes surface algae to bloom. They grow quickly, blocking light to underwater plants. They die, they decompose by respiring bacteria, and that robs other life of oxygen, and the ecosystem dies. The ratios we have from different types of inheritance can tell us how many of each phenotype we should get in a population in theory, but sometimes there are other factors that will affect this. To determine whether or not the observed result is statistically different enough from the expected result so we can consider other factors, we use the chi-squared test. Naturally, when it comes to any statistics, we need a big sample size, at least 20. Chi-squared, which looks like an X but is technically the Greek letter chi, is equal to the sum of the difference between observed and expected count squared divided by expected count. So let's say a flower has two phenotypes, red and white. The ratio should be 3:1, as the allele for red is dominant. Let's say we have 200 of them, we would expect 50 of them to be white. But let's say we find that 48 of them are white and 152 are therefore red. So for white, the calculation is 152 take away 150 squared divided by 150, that's 0.027. Doing the same for red gives us 0.08. Summing these gives us 0.11 rounded to 2 sig figs. As this is less than the critical value of 3.84 for a p-value of 0.05, it's deemed statistically insignificant. The p-value, by the way, is an arbitrary value that everybody just agrees on being the threshold for this. As there are two categories involved in this example, there's just one degree of freedom, n equals 1. If there were three categories, n would be 2, and the critical value would change. That's something you'd have to look up in a table. It's not something you can calculate. A population is a group of the same species of organism living in the same space, so they can breed. Gene pool is the term given to the total number of alleles present in a population. We use the Hardy-Weinberg equations, but it only works if we assume there are no mutations, no immigration or emigration that changes the allele frequency, that it's a large population, and there's also no selection going on. P and Q are the frequencies of the dominant and recessive alleles, respectively. P squared is the frequency of the homozygous dominant alleles. Q squared is the same but for the recessive alleles, and 2pq is the frequency of the heterozygous alleles. While variation in phenotypes within a population can vary due to random fertilization, meiosis, and mutations of alleles, environmental factors can also play a part. If the alleles change enough over generations such that they can no longer interbreed, speciation has occurred. You now have different species. The number and distribution, density of a population in any ecosystem or community is affected by biotic factors, like predators, and abiotic factors, like temperature, light, pH, and humidity. The last three are particularly important for plants. Both types of factors can help a population thrive, while others can limit its growth. The population of a species decreases if it is predated, eaten by predators, at a faster rate than they can reproduce. The predator population increases, and more prey is consumed. A smaller prey population means there's less food for the predators, so its population decreases in turn. Less predation, prey population increases again. This is a predator-prey cycle or relationship. We use a quadrat to do random sampling. We put it in random locations and count the number of a species within it, allowing us to scale up the mean average to get an estimate of the total population in an area. And we can move it along a transect to see how population density or frequency changes with distance too. This is only useful for organisms that move slowly or not at all, of course. For those that do move, we use the mark-release-capture method. We capture a number of an organism, say squirrels, mark them in a way that doesn't affect them, so say it's non-toxic. We recapture another sample a while later and count how many are marked compared to unmarked. An estimation of the population size can then be calculated by multiplying the total numbers of organisms in the first and second samples, then divide by the number of marked ones in the second sample. This relies on the assumption that the population is distributed evenly, there's no immigration or emigration, and ideally no births or deaths. Life finds a way, to quote Jurassic Park. If you have a barren area, just rock, pioneer species can start to show up, like lichens. They can survive in extreme conditions. They decompose, eventually making soil so larger plants can take root. The soil becomes richer, plants get bigger, and eventually it reaches a climax community, which is self-sustaining and stable. This is primary succession. Secondary succession is when a community is wiped out, say by fire, and it starts again, but not from scratch, as there will already be soil present. Conservation is the controlling of succession, even if that means starting the fire ourselves to wipe out a climax community of harmful organisms. So I hope you found that helpful. Leave a like and a comment if you did, and don't forget to check out our revision app to help you test your knowledge. Links in description.